It started at exactly 6:12 a.m., same as every morning for the past 3 weeks. I was standing barefoot on the creaky front porch of my farmhouse, mug of coffee in hand, watching the sunrise spill across the soybean fields like an old Polaroid developing in slow motion. It should have been peaceful. It used to be peaceful, but not anymore, because right on cue, I heard it. That obnoxious, high-pitched whirring. It started as a faint buzz, then grew louder, closer, until the drone came hovering over the fence line like some mechanical vulture looking for roadkill. Its little camera lens gleamed in the early light, swiveling, scanning, zooming, like it had a personal vendetta against my privacy. I sighed. Oh, for Pete's sake, again. The drone drifted lower, its tiny rotors slicing through the air as it swooped toward my pasture, spooking one of my cows into a nervous trot. The camera locked onto me. I raised my coffee mug in salute. Good morning to you, too, you creepy little NSA reject. And there she was, standing smugly on the other side of the property line. Karen. Every neighborhood's got one. Ours came wearing an oversized, don't tread on me, tank top, leopard print leggings, and enough attitude to fill a Walmart parking lot on Black Friday. She stood in her manicured backyard, holding the drone remote like a queen commanding her loyal servant, watching me through oversized sunglasses that covered half her face. Having fun yet, neighbor? I called out. She gave a tight, satisfied smile. It's a public sky, honey. Maybe don't do anything you're embarrassed about if you're worried about being filmed. I felt my jaw tighten. Pretty sure flying that thing over my property is pushing it. She tilted her head mock innocently. You don't own the air, sweetie. I googled it. I took a slow sip of my coffee to stop myself from saying what I really wanted to say. Instead, I turned and walked back inside, letting the screen door bang shut behind me. I could still hear the drone outside, circling, circling, circling. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I picked it up. A text from my sister, Amy. Karen at it again. I snapped a photo of the drone hovering ominously outside my kitchen window and sent it back. Every damn morning. I tried being polite. I really had. The first time she flew it over, I figured it was a one-off. Maybe she was testing out her new toy. But then it happened again, and again, and again. Every morning, right around sunrise, Karen's drone would take off from her yard, zip across the property line, and buzz around like it owned the place. At first, it just hovered over the fields. Then it started getting bolder, hovering near the barn, near the house, peeking into windows. Once, I caught it hovering over the chicken coop like it was casing the joint for an egg heist. I called the sheriff's office. Deputy Mike, a guy I'd gone to high school with, shrugged. As long as it's not landing on your property or causing damage, there's not much I can do. Technically, she's not breaking any state laws. Not breaking the law. She's basically filming me in my underwear while I'm feeding the goats. Mike chuckled nervously. Yeah, that's weird. I'll give you that. But unless it crashes or injures somebody, it's kind of a gray area. A gray area. That's what everyone kept telling me. Meanwhile, Karen's drone kept buzzing my house like it was auditioning for a Transformer sequel. I peered out the window again. It was still there, hovering outside the kitchen window. I flipped it off. The little camera lens zoomed in closer, like it was offended. By noon, I'd counted 5 flyovers, each one lower than the last. I'd spotted Karen filming TikToks in her yard while the drone zipped around overhead, trying to make it look like she lived on some rustic influencer farm instead of a suburban lot with a patchy lawn. It wasn't just annoying anymore. It was invasive. I walked out to the barn, where my old hound dog, Buck, lifted his head and wagged his tail lazily. Looks like Karen's at it again, boy. Buck groaned and flopped back down. He was over it, too. I glanced up at the sky, watching the drone's shadow flicker across the pasture. It circled over the cows again, making one of the calves kick nervously. My grandpa used to say cows were chill creatures, but they didn't take kindly to being harassed from the air. Neither did I. The last straw came that afternoon. I was fixing the fence along the back pasture when I heard it again, closer this time, louder. I looked up just in time to see the drone dip dangerously low over the fence line, startling a group of cows that stampeded toward the gate. "Damn it, Karen!" I shouted, scrambling to close the gate before they bolted onto the road. Karen stood at the edge of her property, phone out, recording the chaos. "Hey, stop filming and help me!" I yelled. She laughed. "Not my problem, cowboy." It wasn't until I'd wrangled the last panicked cow back into the pasture that I realized she'd posted the video online. By dinner, it had over 10,000 views on TikTok. Caption: "When your neighbor's cows can't handle a little drone." The comments were a mix of laughing emojis and people asking if I was single. That night, sitting at the kitchen table with a cold beer in my hand, I stared at my FAA badge sitting in the drawer. I'd left a big city job a few years back, traded the concrete jungle for acres of sky and dirt. But some habits die hard. I knew every regulation, every airspace code, every loophole, every violation. Karen didn't know it, but she'd been messing with the wrong airspace. I sipped my beer, a slow grin spreading across my face. "All right, Karen," I murmured. "Let's see how you like playing by my rules." Outside, the drone buzzed past the window again, its red light blinking mockingly. Not for much longer. Tomorrow, the skies over my farm were going to get a lot less friendly. And Karen, she was about to learn that when you mess with a federal airman, you'd better bring more than just a remote control. I leaned back in my chair, watching the blinking light fade into the darkening sky. Tomorrow was going to be fun. The first time Karen's drone flew over, I figured she was just one of those bored suburban types trying on a new hobby. Harmless. Annoying, but harmless. I even gave her a friendly wave that day, thinking it'd make the buzzing stop. It didn't. Instead, the buzzing multiplied. By the second week, it wasn't just one drone. It was two. By the third week, it was three. Each one buzzing across my property like a swarm of mechanical hornets with high-def cameras. Karen wasn't a hobbyist. She was on a mission. And the longer she lived next door, the clearer that mission became. Control everything. When she moved in 6 months ago, it was already clear she wasn't your run-of-the-mill neighbor. Most folks around here showed up with a pie or a handshake. Karen showed up with a cease and desist letter claiming the rooster next door was violating noise ordinances. It didn't stop there. She tried to shut down the 4th of July fireworks, citing her Chihuahua's severe auditory sensitivity. She complained to the county board about the inappropriate tractor decorations during Halloween. She once called animal control because she thought the neighbor's goats looked too skinny, despite being vet-certified healthy. Karen was less of a neighbor and more of a walking HOA violation. And now she had drones. I tried reasoning with her the first time I caught her launching one from her backyard. I walked over, careful to stay on my side of the property line, and called out, "Hey, Karen, can we talk about the drone thing?" She didn't even look up from her phone. No laws against flying them. "I get that," I said patiently. "But they're spooking my livestock. They've been hovering right over the pasture." She raised a hand, cutting me off. "If your cows can't handle a couple of toys, maybe you shouldn't have livestock." I blinked. "They're not toys. It's public airspace," she snapped. "And don't waste your breath quoting property lines to me. I've done my research." With that, she turned her back and went inside, letting the screen door slap shut behind her. That was the last civil conversation we had. After that, it escalated. Every morning, more drones. Every afternoon, Karen standing in her yard sipping boxed wine from a novelty cup that read, "Mommy's Little Helper," watching them fly with a smug smile. She wasn't flying for fun anymore. She was flying to provoke. And provoke she did. The next morning, I woke up to find one of her drones hovering just above my front porch, close enough I could see the reflection of my sleepy face in its lens. I swatted at it with a broom. It zipped backward just out of reach, like it was toying with me. A notification buzzed on my phone. Karen had posted a video online, me in my boxers and bathrobe, swatting at the drone like a deranged wizard. Caption: Neighbors lost it. Thousands of views, hundreds of laughing emojis. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. Later that day, I caught her standing by the fence line, pointing her phone at my cows as her drone zipped overhead. "What are you filming now?" I demanded. She smirked without looking up. "Evidence." "Evidence of what?" "That you're mistreating your animals. They look stressed." "They're stressed because you keep flying metal birds over their heads." Karen just typed something into her phone, ignoring me. That afternoon, animal control showed up at my door. They left shaking their heads after a quick inspection, apologizing for wasting my time. But Karen watched it all unfold from her porch, sipping her wine, pleased as punch. That night, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through Karen's TikTok account. She had over 50,000 followers, most of them city folks who thought her rural expose videos were hilarious. Her captions painted me as the stubborn old farmer who hated progress. Her fans cheered her on in the comments. "You're the hero we need, Karen. Expose that boomer. This is giving Yellowstone but funnier LOL." Every post felt like a slap. I called Deputy Mike again. "She's harassing me." He sighed. "Unless she's trespassing physically or the drones are weaponized, which I really hope they're not, there's nothing I can do. Not even for stalking or harassment. She's filming open fields, man. Not your bedroom window. She has filmed my window." He hesitated. "That's creepy. But unless she's physically recording through the glass, it's still public airspace. Best advice? Build a taller fence." "A taller fence?" I echoed incredulously. "You want me to build a 20-foot privacy wall because she won't stop flying RC helicopters over my cows?" "Better than escalating," Mike said. "You don't want this turning into a Hatfield and McCoy situation." But it already had. The next day, I found one of her drones crashed in the pasture. Its rotors were mangled, camera lens cracked. Buck the hound was sniffing it curiously. I picked it up, examined it, then placed it gently in a box on my porch with a note, "Found your toy. Please stop flying them over my livestock." An hour later, the box was gone. But that evening, I saw 3 new drones rise from her yard, each one bigger than the last. One had a speaker attached, blaring the "Mission Impossible" theme as it zipped over my barn. I nearly threw my hat into the dirt. It wasn't funny anymore. It wasn't cute. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Karen wanted to fight. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I wasn't just a farmer. Before I traded skyscrapers for cornfields, I'd spent a decade working for the FAA. Airspace was my specialty. Regulations were my bread and butter. I didn't just understand the rules. I'd written some of them. And Karen? She was breaking every single one. That night, I pulled my old FAA credentials from the drawer, dusted them off, and set them next to my laptop. I opened the FAA's online complaint portal, started a new spreadsheet labeled "Karen's Flights." I was done playing defense. Tomorrow, I'd start logging every violation, every unauthorized altitude, every restricted zone infraction, every near miss with livestock. I'd document it all. She wanted to play with the big boys. Fine, let's play. But this wasn't going to be a backyard spat anymore. Karen was about to find out what happens when you fly too close to the sun. And the sun happens to have a federal aviation badge. Outside, the drones buzzed through the night sky, their lights blinking like fireflies on steroids. I watched them from the porch, calm, steady. "Enjoy it while you can, Karen," I murmured. Because tomorrow, the sky was mine. The first part of the plan was patience. I didn't say a word to Karen the next day. Didn't glare over the fence. Didn't shake a fist when her latest fleet of drones buzzed the hayfield at dawn, casting spider-like shadows across the pasture. Instead, I stood quietly on the porch, sipping my coffee, watching. Every time one zipped over the property line, I logged the time, the estimated altitude, the distance from the livestock, even the weather conditions. I wasn't just annoyed anymore. I was building a case. And Karen, she was unknowingly helping me every step of the way. At noon, she launched another drone equipped with a GoPro, flying it so low over the chicken coop that one of the hens squawked and knocked over the waterer. I watched from the barn door, jotting the incident into the spreadsheet on my phone. That drone zipped around the barn 3 times, then zipped back to her yard. Perfect. The next day, she upped her game again. She'd apparently ordered a new drone, bigger, louder, with more features. I heard her bragging about it to one of her online followers while live streaming from her patio. "Yeah, this one's got 4K video, heat sensors, flight stabilization. The works," she preened into the camera. "We're taking this expose to the next level." Expose. That's what she called it. Like I was some corrupt farm tycoon hiding environmental crimes in a manure pile. It wasn't just a hobby for her anymore. It was a performance. And she had no idea the final act was about to start. I spent the next 3 days gathering every shred of evidence. Every time a drone flew under minimum safe altitude, I logged it. Every time it hovered over the livestock for longer than allowed under FAA Part 107, I made a note. Every video she posted online, I downloaded and timestamped. By the end of the week, my spreadsheet was thicker than a Waffle House menu. And that's when I made my move. I walked over to the fence line one morning holding a folder stuffed with printouts. Karen was in her yard, dressed like a reality TV contestant in oversized sunglasses and a sparkly tracksuit. She glanced up from her phone, barely interested. "Oh, here we go," she sighed. "Come to whine again?" I held up the folder. "Nope. Just thought you'd want to see this." She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Your violations," I said casually. "Every unauthorized flight, every footage of restricted airspace, every single time you crossed into a no-fly zone under FAA regulations." Her smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I flipped the folder open and showed her one of the highlighted maps. "Here's the footage you posted last week. Remember the one where your drone flew inside my barn? See this line here? That's a federal no-fly zone for agricultural structures." She frowned. "There's no way. And here's the video of you flying over the cows at 70 feet. See the problem? Livestock harassment under FAA agricultural guidelines." Her mouth opened, then closed. I handed her a printed screenshot of her TikTok page. "This? You posted your own evidence. Every violation in high definition." She stared at the papers, her lips tightening. "You can't do anything. I haven't broken real laws." I gave a small smile. "That's the thing, Karen. I work at the FAA. Used to oversee airspace enforcement in the Midwest. These are real laws. You've been violating federal aviation regulations every day for the past month." She swallowed hard. "So what? You're going to fine me?" "Not me," I said. The next day, her drone stayed grounded. And a day after that, her yard was quiet for the first time since she'd moved in. But the real cherry on top. A week later, I got a formal letter from the FAA. They thanked me for my thorough documentation and confirmed Karen's drone operations had been fined multiple times, with a temporary ban placed on her license pending investigation. I framed that letter and hung it next to the front door. Karen never apologized, never spoke to me again, never flew another drone over my farm. But every time I stepped out onto the porch, coffee in hand, I caught her peeking nervously from behind her curtains. And every time, I gave a friendly little wave, because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or messy. Sometimes it's just letting the law do what it's meant to do while you sit back and enjoy the peace and quiet. And for the first time in weeks, the only sound in the morning was birdsong and the low, contented moo of the cows. No buzzing, no drones, just the sweet sound of victory. A week passed. Then 2. And while the official letters, the fines, and the silence should have been the end of it, Karen wasn't wired to lose quietly. I knew it the moment I saw the delivery truck pull up to her house. Out came a giant box emblazoned with the logo of some high-end drone manufacturer I didn't even recognize. The kind of brand you see in tech magazines or used in big-budget Hollywood stunts. Karen wasn't backing down. She was upgrading. I watched from the porch as she unboxed it in the driveway, peeling away the plastic like it was Christmas morning. Her grin stretched ear to ear. The kind of smile someone wears right before they make the dumbest decision of their life. The drone wasn't just big. It was massive, nearly the wingspan of a small ultralight. Bright white, sleek, flashing navigation lights that belonged on an actual aircraft. And when she powered it up, the hum wasn't a buzz anymore. It was a roar. "Oh, Karen," I murmured. "You just gave me a gift." That afternoon, I heard the engine whine kick up again. The monster drone rose from her backyard like a phoenix of poor judgment, tilting forward with alarming speed. It shot across the property line in seconds, dipping low over the pasture, scattering the cows in a chaotic stampede. I didn't even flinch, just clicked record on my phone. Karen's voice crackled over the drone's onboard speaker. "Smile for the camera, farm boy." And then, because fate has a sense of humor, the drone wobbled just a little at first, then more. It lurched sideways in the air, dipping toward the barn. "Oh no!" I muttered. "Oh no!" Karen yelled from her yard. The drone clipped the edge of the weather vane, spun wildly, and slammed into the side of the hay shed with a sound like a giant piñata breaking apart. A shower of plastic, wires, and camera parts exploded across the dirt. I stood there a moment, sipping my coffee, letting the silence settle over the wreckage. Then I picked up my phone, zoomed in on the debris, and snapped a picture. It was poetic. Karen was screaming from across the yard, but it wasn't clear whether it was rage or denial. "You sabotaged it," she yelled. "I know you did something." I shook my head slowly. "Karen, the only thing I sabotaged was my afternoon nap watching this happen." She stomped toward the fence, waving her phone. "I'm calling the police. I'm reporting this. You're going to pay for that drone." "Sure," I said, pulling out my own phone. "Let's call them together." And so we did. Deputy Mike showed up 20 minutes later, chewing gum like he'd rather be anywhere else. He surveyed the wreckage, the angry Karen, and the impossibly large drone parts scattered like a downed alien spacecraft. He sighed deeply. "Karen, please tell me you had an FAA waiver for flying that thing." "I don't need a waiver," she snapped. "It's my drone on my property." Mike rubbed his forehead. "Karen, that drone's heavy enough to qualify under Part 91, not just Part 107. It's basically an unmanned aircraft at that size, and you flew it under 400 feet over someone else's livestock into a structure." He whistled low. "That's a whole pile of violations." She sputtered. "He set me up. He had that weather vane placed there on purpose." Mike gave her a long, tired look. "Karen, the weather vane's been on that barn roof since before you bought your house." She fell silent. "I'm going to need to file an official report," Mike added, pulling out his notebook. "Might have to impound the wreckage. And Karen, the FAA is probably going to want to talk to you again. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Nothing came out. I leaned casually on the fence. Tough break. She glared at me. But this time, there was no fire in her eyes. Just exhaustion, just the sinking weight of realizing she'd played every card and still lost. Mike packed up the drone pieces into evidence bags, loaded them into his truck, and gave me a little salute before pulling out of the driveway. Karen stood in the yard a long time after he left, staring at the empty sky like she expected another drone to magically appear and fix it all. But nothing came. The silence stretched out between us until she finally turned and walked slowly back into her house, shoulders slumped, head down. And from that day forward, the drones never returned. Weeks passed, then months. Karen kept to herself. The curtains stayed closed. The yard, once alive with buzzing motors and flashing lights, turned quiet, overgrown, and forgotten. And me? I got my peace back. Every morning, I'd sit on the porch with my coffee, watching the sun rise over the pasture. The cows grazed calmly again. The chickens stopped hiding under the coop. The dog stretched lazily in the sun. And every now and then, I'd hear a distant lawn mower or the faint hum of a highway miles away. But never again the angry drone of Karen's machines. Sometimes justice comes with sirens and spotlights. And sometimes it comes quietly, with a letter from the FAA, a shattered drone, and the knowledge that arrogance always flies too close to the sun. As for me, well, let's just say I finally got to enjoy that peace and quiet she tried so hard to take away. And every so often, when I caught her peeking out from behind those curtains, I'd lift my coffee mug and give her a little nod, a reminder that sometimes the sky doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the flashiest toys. It belongs to the ones who know how to read the airspace map and play the long game.